This is the cat who became president of Jupiter. Her name was Mittens, and she was just an ordinary house cat living with an astronomer named James. They lived in a small town in the state of Maine, far away from any other people. The only company they had were the trees, the birds, the squirrels, and the vast emptiness of outer space. Sometimes when they were both bored, James and Mittens would go outside to gaze at the stars together. It all started one night when Mittens accidentally stepped on a strange object. It looked like a big metal frisbee. In fact, it was a space radio left behind by a group of astronauts who had landed their spaceship in the nearby forest. Mittens didn't know that. Well, she knew was that the radio made a funny noise when she stepped on it. So she meowed. To her surprise, the radio responded by repeating her meow exactly 78 times. James came running over to see what had happened, but when he tried to meow into the radio, nothing came out. Only Mittens' meow echoed back at him. He tried again and again, but the radio refused to repeat his voice for some reason.
I know.
It only worked for cats. Now there just so happened to be a planet called Jupiter in the exact direction the radio was broadcasting. It was 800 trillion kilometers away. But the radio was transmitting Mittens' meow so loudly that the Jovian citizens could hear it perfectly clear. They were a humanoid species with bluish skin and large black eyes. For hundreds of years, they had been ruled by a monarchy, but they didn't have a king or a queen. Instead, they worshipped whoever they believed was sending them messages from above. At first, they thought it was their god, Jube, the one their entire religion was based around. But then they realized that their god wasn't very talkative. Over the past 4 billion years, all he'd ever said was, "Hello." So whoever was sending them the meow must be more divine than their old god. Mittens had no idea what she'd started. Back on Jupiter, the Jovian citizens gathered together in public squares and listened intently to the radio as Mittens napped in the sun. When she purred, they took it as an omen of good fortune. When she hissed, they cowered in fear. Finally, when Mittens decided it was time to find food, they heard her meow and immediately knew what they had to do. Every single Jovian citizen abandoned their homes and went to the nearest election center. They voted unanimously to make Mittens their leader, even though she was 800 trillion kilometers away and had no clue any of this was happening. Soon, news spread throughout the galaxy that Jupiter had elected a new ruler, the Great Meowser. Her portrait appeared on every asteroid in the asteroid belt and every TV screen on every spaceship that passed by. Some planets even replaced their own rulers with images of Mittens. Soon, the entire galaxy was worshipping a cat from Earth. But Mittens still hadn't figured out what she'd done. Meanwhile, the Jovians were waiting for their new leader to arrive. They constructed a massive throne room out of ice and rock for her to rule from. At the same time, they launched spaceships across the galaxy, searching for a cat that looked like Mittens. They asked every species they met, "Have you seen a cat around? Please tell us where she is. We need to get her to Jupiter as soon as possible." And finally, they found her relaxing on James's windowsill. The Jovians approached Mittens respectfully and told her about their world. She listened patiently until they told her they wanted her to be their president. "You want me to be your president because we believe you are a deity sent from above. You are our great mother, the one who will save us from the darkness." Mittens had never been particularly political, but she liked the sound of that. She couldn't help but feel a little bit sorry for these poor lost aliens. Maybe being their president wouldn't be so bad after all. She agreed on one condition. "If I become your president, my first law will be that everyone must take a nap every afternoon." Doesn't that sound fair? Of course. Anything you desire will be law. Great mother. So the moment Mittens stepped foot onto Jupiter, she became the most powerful cat in the known universe. Her first order of business was to declare nap time mandatory. Of course, since she was still getting used to being president, she accidentally signed the law by knocking a pen off the table instead of actually writing it. This led to several minor inconveniences, such as a small moon accidentally flying into the sun, but nothing too serious. Meanwhile, the Jovians were busy making Mittens' life more comfortable. They built giant scratching posts between asteroids. They decorated her palace with thousands of shiny baubles. And they kept bringing her live birds as gifts, even though she didn't really want to eat them. She spent her days lounging around, taking cat naps, watching TV, and occasionally meowing into the void of space just for fun. That last one turned out to be a problem. You see, it just so happened that the space radio was also picking up signals from another planet, Saturn. Saturn was covered in gigantic rings that the Jovians had never seen before, because their planet was always blocking the view. But when Mittens started playing with Saturn's rings, the Jovians saw them for the first time and immediately declared war. The entire Jovian fleet set out to conquer Saturn, but they couldn't find it anywhere. Turns out the rings weren't actually a planet. They were just chunks of ice floating in a flat circle. When Mittens realized what she'd done, she immediately called for a truce. Fortunately, this was a huge embarrassment for the Jovians. They had gone to war with a bunch of rocks. Now they had to find a way to pretend like it never happened. To get her mind off all that, Mittens decided to start a feline-inspired cultural revolution. She appointed dozens of cats from Earth to positions of power throughout her government. Together, they built the first interplanetary scratching post and sent it hurtling through space towards Saturn. It took 200 million years to reach its destination. But eventually, the two planets connected and Mittens could finally relax. She spent the next few billion years knitting sweaters for every sentient species in the galaxy, even though most of them didn't like to wear clothes. And that brings us to the present day. Today, Jupiter is the largest ball of yarn in the galaxy. The Jovians love to come by and pet it whenever they have free time. Of course, they don't know that Mittens is the one who knitted it. They think it's a miracle from above, just like everything else she's done. And somehow, despite ruling over half the solar system for billions of years, Mittens still hasn't gotten tired of it. She has everything she could possibly want, including endless balls of yarn, mountains of catnip, and a constant supply of birds to chase. As the Jovians say, long live the queen. May her meow be heard throughout the cosmos. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, check out another video on the channel.